Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Jonathan, and I'm an alcoholic. And we want to welcome you to the original Zoo Crew's 12 Steps to Freedom workshop. This workshop was put together for us by John A. of West Palm Beach with outlines from the Back to Basics workshop written by Wally P. So, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. That's a quote by Albert Einstein. So, hello, and welcome to the 12 Steps to Freedom workshop. We'll be going through the 12 steps in about 4 hours. Let's start this meeting with a moment of silence to reflect on what we're about to do here today, followed by the serenity prayer. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. See, you could be any place right now, but instead, you're here with us, and we're happy to have you here, making this investment in your sobriety. You're making a huge deposit in your IRA, your individual recovery account, by being here and participating. It's how small, because one day you may have a situation that will require you to make a huge withdrawal, and you do not want your IRA to be depleted. During this workshop, we may take about a 10-minute break, maybe around 12 Eastern time. And we want to get done by 3 o'clock. No, excuse me, by 2 o'clock. Yeah, we want to get done by 2 o'clock. So we'll mostly be using the big book and the 12 and 12 to go through the steps. And we will be sharing our experience, strength, and hope with you on the 12 steps to help you get a better understanding of the steps and how to apply them in your life. Page 15 of the 12 and 12 states, AA's 12 steps are a group of principles, spiritual in nature, if practiced as a way of life, can expel the obsession to drink and enable the sufferer to become happily, usefully whole. Some of you might be thinking, it's impossible to go through the 12 steps in just 4 hours. It's not impossible. In fact, that's how they did it in the early days of AA. If you read the big book on page 263, it tells us it was Dr. Bob's afternoon off, and he had me to his office, and we spent 3 or 4 hours formally going through the 6-step program as it was at that time. The 6 steps were complete deflation, 2, dependence and guidance from a higher power, 3, moral inventory, 4, confession, 5, restitution, and 6, continue to work with other alcoholics. Dr. Bob led me through these steps. At the moral inventory, he brought up several of my bad personality traits or character defects, such as selfishness, conceit, jealousy, carelessness, intolerance, ill temper, sarcasm, and resentments. We went over these at great length, and then he finally asked me if I wanted these character defects removed. When I said yes, we both knelt at his desk and prayed, each of us asking for these defects to be taken away. And his name was Earl T., and he went on to start AA in Chicago and stayed sober for 26 years after sitting down with Dr. Bob that day. See, there were only 6 steps at that time, but Bill expanded them into 12 when he wrote the big book. But those 6 steps still encompass all of the principles of the current 12 steps. A prospect or sponsee couldn't attend an AA meeting until he had taken the steps. He didn't even know where the AA meetings were held at that time until someone sponsored him into the AA meeting. I'm not going to say that AA was more effective then as opposed to now, but I will say that people are dying needlessly because they are procrastinating in taking the 12 steps. If they are not dying, they're suffering longer than they need to. How soon do you want to be happy, joyous, and free? If your house was on fire, you would have a sense of urgency to get the fire out. If you had a life threatening disease, you would have a sense of urgency in getting on the path to recovery. Freedom from the obsession of alcohol comes in taking the 12 steps. Your life is in danger, so have a sense of urgency in having the 12 steps become a way of life sooner than later. See, that feeling of being happy, joyous, and free comes from taking the 12 steps. The 12 steps help us on the underlying issues behind alcoholism. If alcohol was the problem, most of us would be cured by now. Alcohol was but a symptom. Do you want to know how to get in a position of neutrality and get a great defense against that first sucker drink? Well, it's through the 12 steps of AA. Quitting drinking is easy as pie. Anyone can quit drinking. You can quit drinking. You all have quit drinking at some point prior to coming to AA. The problem is staying stopped. That's where AA's 12 steps come into play. If alcohol, if the alcohol treatment centers, excuse me, if if alcohol was the problem, treatment centers would have a 99.9% success rate. You could go to jail for a weekend, stop drinking. Again, everyone in here has stopped drinking before coming into AA, but we couldn't stay stopped. Even if we stopped for an hour, a half a day, or perhaps a week, we had stopped, but we did not know how to stay stopped. In AA, we're able to stay stopped one day at a time by taking the 12 steps and practicing these principles behind the steps. We become someone who no longer needs to drink. The key to staying stopped is not to pick up that first drink. We are all one drink away from a drunk. The goal for today is for you to get 12 plus steps away from that first sucker drink. If you stay for this whole workshop, you will then have taken all the steps except for 4, 5, 8, and 9. You will get a cursory knowledge of those steps, but you will need to get a sponsor or someone who has experience to help you with these steps. You can be on step 9 in just a few days. If, excuse me, I'd like everyone right now to stand up. Yes, that's you. We're asking you to stand up. If you have a big book,
with your big book
please
in your
take
hand.
it. Yeah, with your big book in your hand. If you have a big book, well, mine's is on digital. Please stand. Now, drop your big book on the floor and remain standing. Please remain standing until I'm finished reading the paragraph. In the big book, page 25, see, there is a solution almost none of us like: the self searching, the leveling of pride, the confession of shortcomings, which this process requires for its successful confirmation. But we saw that it really worked in others, and we had come to believe in the hopelessness and futility of life as we had been living it. When therefore we were approached by those in whom the problem had been solved, there was nothing left for us to do but to pick up the simple kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet. We have found much of heaven, and we have been rocketed into the fourth dimension of existence in which we had never even dreamed. Please pick up your big book, which contains that simple kit of spiritual tools that have been just laid at our feet. So, before we go any further, I have a few questions that I'd like each person to answer. And these are the questions that are asked of an alcoholic. Are you willing to go to any length to get sober and to stay sober? Yes or no? Shout it out. Yes or
Absolutely,
no?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you want to be happy, joyous, and free? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Everybody can
no.
unmute. Shout it out, guys. Yes or no? Everybody can
Yeah,
unmute.
man. I know I want to be happy, joyous, and free.
Yes.
And I know
Yes.
that I'm still
Yes.
willing to go to any length to stay sober one day at a time. I'm still willing to go to any length. I am not forgetting the day that I said that I would do anything for victory over alcohol. Okay, well, if you have decided that you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to step one, which will be read by one of our readers.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Amanda, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Amanda.
Step one, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. From the Big Book, page 24. The fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice and drink. Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. We are unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory of the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. We are without defense against the first drink. Split the step into two parts. Look at step one as first, admitting that you are powerless over alcohol, and second, that your life has become unmanageable. Focus on the first part until you are comfortable in saying that you are powerless over alcohol and believe it when you say it. Then take the time to look at your life and experiences with an aerial view so that you can see the big picture of how unmanageable it was. There's absolutely no action taken on steps 1, 2, or 3. There's nothing to write until you get to step 4. You may choose to do some writing if you want, or if a sponsor suggests that you do. There are even worksheets on the internet for steps 1, 2, and 3. From the Big Book, page 30, we learned that we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholics. This is the first step in recovery. We perceive that only through utter defeat are we able to take our first steps toward liberation and strength. Our admissions of personal powerlessness finally turn out to be firm bedrock upon which happy and purposeful lives may be built. That's from the 12 and 12, page 21. The doctor's opinion will show you how you are powerless over alcohol and also why you drank if you are an alcoholic. Men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. The sensation is so elusive that while they admit it is injurious, they cannot, after a time, differentiate the true from the false. To them, their alcoholic life seems the only normal one. They are restless, irritable, and discontented unless they can again experience the sense of ease and comfort which comes at once by taking a few drinks which they see others taking with impunity. After they have succumbed to the desire again, as so many do, and the phenomenon of craving develops, they pass through the well-known stages of a spree, emerging remorseful with a firm resolution not to drink again. This is repeated over and over, and unless this person can experience an entire psychic change, there is very little hope of his recovery. You don't crave alcohol until you've had the first drink. Prior to that, it's obsession of the mind. So what are some myths about this step? The first myth is powerlessness means you are weak. When we admit powerlessness, it is a crucial step on the pathway to independence and strength. It requires honesty and courage to accept that alcohol and or drugs have taken over your life. Another myth is that you have to hit rock bottom before you're able to find support. It doesn't require a major life event to open your eyes to your alcoholism or a developing alcoholism. Sometimes all it requires is a realization that alcohol is causing you more pain than the pain you aim to escape from. Even if you are a high-ranking member of the Not Yet Club and had not yet been arrested or gotten a DUI, lost a job, lost your family, etc., your life could still be unmanageable. You do not have to ride the elevator to the bottom. You can get off on any floor. You hit bottom when you stop digging. Do you have reservations about being an alcoholic? There are various ways your life can be unmanageable. Some of these ways are if you're experiencing health problems like high blood pressure, insomnia, ulcers, you have feelings of guilt, despair, hopelessness, depression, anxiety, self-hate, or thoughts of suicide, having poor performance at work or school that leads to loss of employment or poor grades. If you lose parental rights, you get a divorce, having some serious relational problems with your friends or your family. You experience legal issues, financial problems, or incarceration. Have you compared your alcoholism with other people's alcoholism? What does unmanageability mean to you? What troubles have been caused because of your alcoholism or addiction? Have you used alcohol or drugs to change or suppress your feelings? Are you in denial? What reservations are you still holding on to? Do you accept that you'll never regain control over drinking, even if it's been a long period of time without the use? What could your life be like if you surrendered completely? Are you willing to follow directions, go to meetings regularly, and give recovery your best effort? Have you made peace with the fact that you're an alcoholic and that you will have to do things to stay sober? Is AA for you? There is a 12 questions pamphlet that you can read through following the link. In boxing, a fighter loses when his corner throws in the towel and quits. In AA, we win when we throw in the towel and quit or surrender. Prior to AA and the 12 steps, we are totally powerless over that first sucker drink. And once we took that first drink, we were powerless to stop until we got that buzz. It doesn't matter how long you drank or how much you drank. We thought alcohol was the solution before we came into AA. Alcohol was a temporary solution. Through Alcoholics Anonymous, you can find a permanent solution and a true higher power. Before coming into AA and taking the 12 steps, we were totally powerless over the first sucker drink. And once we took that first drink, we were powerless to stop until we got that buzz. For many alcoholics, alcohol was their higher power. But in Alcoholics Anonymous, we found a permanent solution and a true higher power to help us face reality. Many people take steps 1 and 2 prior to joining AA. Why would they go to a meeting or continue going to AA meetings if they didn't think they were powerless over alcohol and their lives were somewhat unmanageable? Alcoholics would not continue coming to AA if they didn't feel AA could help restore their sanity or do something for them. Why continue to fight and get overrun by sheer force when you can negotiate a conditional surrender? Unfortunately, when we come to AA, we do not have the luxury of negotiating any type of conditional surrender. Our surrender must be an unconditional one without any reservations whatsoever. Nobody surrenders to die, you surrender to live. Again, sad to say that we do not reach the mindset until we are thoroughly defeated. Then and only then do we allow a power greater than ourselves to come in and help us rebuild and perhaps emerge better than before. Each person's story is uniquely their own. It's best not to compare your story to anyone else's. Do not compare, relate, identify. You don't have to go back out to create a sexier and more exciting story because you think yours is too boring. Become committed to your sobriety and not just involved. Once the obsession has been relieved, we are no longer powerless over alcohol. I can't give you a time frame, but through taking the steps, you will be placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. You will no longer be powerless over people, places, and things, nor powerful over alcohol. Notice that the step reads, we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. However you interpret the 12 steps is up to you and perhaps you and your sponsor. Are you ready to concede to your innermost self that you are an alcoholic? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I
Do you
am.
Yes.
do you have any reservations
Yes.
whatsoever about being
No.
an alcoholic? Yes or no?
No.
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 If you have conceded that you are an alcoholic and have no reservations about being an alcoholic, then you have just taken step 1. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for bringing us through step 1 today, Amanda. Okay,
Oh, you're
now the
welcome.
next reader will be Sheila. Thank you. The next reader will be Sheila, but I don't see her, so I'm just going to continue. Can I get someone to do step 2? Or would you like to continue, Amanda? Regina, come on
Regina.
in.
Regina, an alcoholic.
Hi, Regina.
Step 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Some members of AA will immediately bring up God when the object of step 2 comes up. Step 2 isn't about believing or not believing in a God. We don't have to immediately start talking about God when the step comes up. The newcomer can be spoon-fed the God talk. Step 2 talks about coming to believe in a power greater than yourself. That power can be anything you choose. 12 and 12, page 26. First Alcoholics Anonymous does not demand that you believe anything. All of its 12 steps are but suggestions. Second, to get sober and just stay sober, you don't have to swallow all of the step 2 right now. Looking back, I find that I took it piecemeal myself. Third, all you really need is a truly open mind. Just resign from the debating society and quit bothering yourself with such deep questions as whether it was the hen or the egg that came first. Again, I say, all you need is the open mind. There is nothing to write in steps 1, 2, or 3. It's up to you if you want to do some writing with these 3 steps, but in the big book doesn't mention writing until we get to step 4. The actions start with step 4. Big book, page 46. We found that as soon as we were able to lay aside prejudice and express even a willingness to believe in a power greater than ourselves, we commenced to get results, even though it was impossible for any of us to fully define or comprehend that power, which is God. Big book, page 46. Much to our relief, we discover we did not need to consider another's conception of God. Our own conception, however inadequate, was sufficient to make the approach and to effect a contact with Him. As soon as we admitted the possible existence of a creative intelligence, a spirit of the universe underlying the totality of things, we began to be possessed of a new sense of power and direction, provided we took other simple steps. We found that God does not make too hard terms. We found that God does not make too hard terms with those who seek Him. Big book, page 47. When therefore we speak to you of God, we mean your own conception of God. This implies too to other spiritual expressions which you find in this book. Do not let any prejudice you may have against spiritual terms deter you from honestly asking yourself what they mean to you. Big book, page 45. Lack of power, that was our dilemma. We had to find a power by which we could live, and it had to be a power greater than ourselves. Big book, page 55. Deep down in every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. It may be obscured by calamity, by pomp, by worship of other things, but in some form or other, it is there. For faith in a power greater than ourselves and miraculous demonstrations of that power in human lives are facts as old as man himself. Page 47, Big Book. We needed to ask ourselves but one short question. Do I now believe, or am I even willing to believe, that there is a power greater than myself? As soon as a man can say that he does believe or is willing to believe, we emphatically assure him that he is on his way. It has been repeatedly proven among us that upon this simple cornerstone, a wonderfully effective spiritual structure can be built. Most people into AA on the third step, please don't waste time overthinking this thing, this way of living. You can surrender to alcoholism and die drinking, or you can surrender to your higher power in AA and be happy, joyous, and free. Lack of power was our dilemma, but we can tap into a power greater than ourselves that will remove the obsession to drink and give us a design for living. Do you believe or not, or are you now willing? Do you believe or are you even willing to believe that there is a power greater than yourself? Yes. That power can be
Yes.
anything at all.
Yes.
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 If you
Hold on.
answered
Yes.
yes to
Yes.
question,
Yes.
Wait, Regina, hold on, please. Ask each question one at a time and then wait for a response.
okay. Do you believe or are you even willing to believe that there is a power greater than yourself?
Yes.
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 I did
Yes.
it again. Okay.
Yes.
Are you willing to believe that there's a power greater than yourself?
Yes.
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 If you answered
Yes.
yes to the question, then you have just taken step 2. Amazing. That's the step I'm on.
Yes.
What's up? That's what's
Thank you
up.
for allowing me to share.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming in and reading for us today. Okay. Now we'll be moving on to step 3. And that will be
Any
Sheila, right?
hey, cousin, any comments or questions on steps 1 and 2 right now? Comments, questions? Okay,
I
that's
have
how
a comment.
simple.
I
Go ahead.
appreciate that I'm not doing this alone, that I have other people in the program that are willing to walk me through this and be there with me step by step. Thank you. I appreciate y'all.
Yeah, that's how simple this thing is, guys. Very simple. Steps 1 and 2. Have that sense of urgency. Go ahead, Regina.
My question is for step 2, then, I want to make sure I'm understanding this right. Step 2 isn't, it is where I acknowledge that there is a power greater than myself. It's not until step 3 that I surrender. Am I to understand that? Is that 2 parts?
Yeah, step 2 came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And that power can be anything if you want it to be. Remember, we read, it's not about God. Step 2 is not about God. Anything you want it to be, step 2. You can make the group. You can make the group your higher power. Anything. And then step 3, yeah, just wait till step 3 and then ask that question again. Please. We're reading step 3 now.
Okay. And Wendy is our next reader. Wendy, come on in on step 3.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to read Wendy Alcoholic. Step 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. C, that God could and would if he were sought. The ABCs of the AA program sum up steps 1 and 2. Step 1, if you are convinced that you're an alcoholic and that your life was unmanageable without any reservations. Step 2, if you are convinced that a power greater than yourself can help you. There is nothing to write in steps 1, 2, or 3. It's up to you if you want to do some writing with these 3 steps, but the big book doesn't mention writing until we get to step 4. The actions start with step 4. From the big book, page 60, being convinced we were at step 3, which is that we decided to turn our will and our life over to God as we understood him. Just what do we mean by that, and just what do we do? Also from the big book, page 60, it states, the first requirement is that we be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. On that basis, we are almost always in collision with something or somebody, even though our motives are good. Most people try to live by self-propulsion. Each person is like an actor who wants to run the whole show, is forever trying to arrange the lights, the ballet, the scenery, and the rest of the players in his own way. From the 12 and 12, page 34, practicing step 3, is like the opening of a door, which to all appearances is still closed and locked. All we need is a key and the decision to swing the door open. There is only one key, and it is called willingness. Once unlocked by willingness, the door opens almost of itself, and looking through it, we shall see a pathway beside, which is an inscription. It reads, "This is the way to a faith that works." In the first 2 steps, we were engaged in reflection. We saw that we were powerless over alcohol, but we also perceived that faith of some kind, if only in AA itself, is possible to anyone. These conclusions did not require action, they required only acceptance. The key word in step 3 is decision. There is absolutely no action taken, nor is any type of action necessary for completion of step 3. The actions come in the subsequent steps. If 2 birds are on a power line and one of them decides to fly off, how many are left? You still have 2 left on the power line. After making the decision to turn our will, our thoughts, and our lives, our actions, to the care of God, absolutely nothing happens until and unless it is followed by action. Steps 1, 2, and 3 pave the way for the willingness to come to make the decision to turn our will and our lives over, to change our thoughts and actions. Steps 4 through 9 show us how to make the change happen, as well as removing our character defects that prevent us from doing it. Steps 10, 11, and 12 help us keep our will and our lives in his care. Another key word in step 3 is care. You're not turning your will and life over to God. You are turning them over to his care. We have free will to do whatever we want. The longer you are sober, you will find that the things you want to do have changed. The path will get narrower. You will do the right thing in life because you want to. You may not always know what the right thing to do is in a situation, but you always know what is the wrong thing to do. From the 12 and 12, pages 34 and 35, we read that like all the remaining steps, step 3 calls for affirmative action. For it is only by action that we can cut away the self-will, which has always blocked the entry of God, or if you like, a higher power, into our lives. Faith, to be sure, is necessary, but faith alone can avail nothing. We can have faith, yet keep God out of our lives. Therefore, our problem now becomes just how and by what specific means shall we be able to let him in? Step 3 represents our first attempt to do this. In fact, the effectiveness of the whole AA program will rest upon how well and earnestly we have tried to come to a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. From the big book, page 62, first of all, we had to quit playing God. It didn't work. Next, we decided that hereafter in this drama of life, God was going to be our director. He is the principal, we are his agents. He is the father, and we are his children. Most good ideas are simple, and this concept was the keystone of the new and triumphant arch through which we pass to freedom.
Debbie? Oh, hi.
Sorry. From the Big Book, page 63, we were now at step 3. Many of us said to our Maker as we understood him, God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. We thought well before taking this step, making sure we were ready, that we could at last abandon ourselves utterly to him. Many call this the third step prayer. From the Big Book, page 63 also, we found it very desirable to take this spiritual step with an understanding person, such as our wife, best friend, or spiritual advisor. But it is better to meet God alone than with one who might misunderstand. The wording was, of course, quite optional so long as we express the idea, voicing it without reservation. This was only a beginning, though if honestly and humbly made, an effect, sometimes a very great one, was felt at once. Don't let the God word stop you from taking this step. Your God or higher power can be whoever or whatever you want. You can customize your God to your specifications. Some AA members say they do steps 1, 2, and 3 every day. Some say they surrender every day. Others say they've only done steps 1, 2, and 3 once, and they are no longer in a state of surrender. Some members say they are still powerless over alcohol, even after years of sobriety. Others say they are no longer powerless, they are in a position of neutrality. Step 3 is about the God of your understanding. Do not get hung up on the God word. God can stand for group of drunks, grow or die, greatest of daddies, or anything you want. You don't even have to use the God word. Just call it your HP, higher power. You can have your own conception of God and not that of your parents. You don't need to keep the God you grew up with. You can now customize your God just as you would customize a computer to your specifications. AA will help you plug into the power of your God. The room you're in is full of power outlets, but if you don't plug in, you won't get the power. The third step helps you find the power outlet and plug in. The rest of the steps clear the path to the power, as well as staying plugged into the power source. Interdependence. You will get more independence by being dependent on your higher power, or HP. For most people in this meeting, alcohol was their God, their higher power. Alcohol was their crutch in life. Alcohol, however, was a temporary solution. You now have a long-term, permanent solution in AA and your higher power. You can lean on them for support and strength. In step 3, you will begin to see how your higher power was looking over you your whole life. Don't see your higher power was with you your whole life. Think about the times that you should have died. Think about the times that you have been arrested. Think about the times something horrible should have happened, but it didn't go as badly as it should have or could have been. That was your higher power looking out for you. You will begin to see that everything happens in your life for a reason, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. It's okay to have faith and fear simultaneously. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is having fear, but going forward anyway. You don't even have to believe in God. Again, your HP, higher power, could be anything you want. You can even be an atheist and still get sober and become happy, joyous, and free. The bottom line is that AA works if you believe in God. It works if you don't believe in God. The only way it will not work is if you think you are God. Are you ready to turn your will and your life over to the care of the God of your understanding? Yes or no?
Yes.
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 Yes, all right. Are you ready to do the right thing in your life from now on, one day
Yeah.
at a time?
Yes.
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 Beautiful. If you answered yes, let's say the third step prayer together. God,
God,
I offer
God,
myself
God,
to thee,
myself unto
to
thee.
do
to
will
build with me and do with me as thou
me
wilt.
as your will,
Relieve me of the bondage of self,
of self,
that I may better
that I
do thy
may
will.
better do thy will.
Take
Take
away my
away my
difficulties,
difficulties,
that victory over them
with them,
bear witness
that
to those I would help of
I
thy
would help
power,
of thy
thy
power,
love, and thy way
love,
of life.
and thy way of life. May I do thy ways.
Amen. If you
Amen.
answered yes to this question, then you have just taken step 3. Congratulations.
Yay.
If you have
Thank you.
decided you want to have and are willing to go any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. That's from the big book, page 58. Are you still willing to go to any lengths?
Yes.
If so,
Yes.
let's move on.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much for leading us through step 3. And now we're going to just move on to step 4 because that's what the program says. It says, what do we do after step 3? We launch into step 4. I'm Jonathan and I'm an alcoholic.
Actually, cousin,
Are there any?
Regina had that question on step 3 earlier. How about Regina, was that question answered?
Absolutely.
All right, fantastic.
Thank you.
All right, cousin, go ahead.
Okay, great. All right, here we go. Launching into step 4. Step 4, made a searching and feeling more inventory of ourselves. How soon should you start step 4? After you've done step 3. Let's see what the founding fathers of AA had to say about that topic. In the big book, page 63 and 64, it states, next, we launched out on a course of vigorous action, the first step of which is a personal house cleaning, which many of us had never attempted. Though our decision was a vital and crucial step, it could have little permanent effect unless at once followed by strenuous effort to face and to be rid of the things in ourselves which had been blocking us. Our liquor was but a symptom. So we had to get down to causes and conditions. This means you started step 4 immediately after doing step 3. Why do we need to do step 4? You won't know what to fix if you don't know what's broken. You won't know what it is about you that needs to be changed. And you won't know what your assets and liabilities are if you don't take this inventory. In the big book, page 63 and 64, a business which takes no regular inventory usually goes broke. Taking commercial inventory is a fact-finding and a fact-facing process. It is an effort to discover the truth about the stock in trade. One object is to disclose damaged or unsellable goods, to get rid of them promptly and without regret. If the owner of the business is to be successful, he cannot fool himself about value. We did exactly the same thing with our lives. We took stock honestly. First, we searched out the flaws in our makeup, which caused our failure, being convinced that self, manifested in various ways, was what had defeated us. We considered its common manifestations. Step 4 and 5 will help you to uncover, discover, and discard troubling facts from the past. The past will no longer have power over you. You will learn your part in many situations from your past. The bottom line is to no longer be a victim of the incidents of the past. There is nothing wrong with seeking outside help if that is required. In the 12 and 12, page 42, it states nearly every serious emotional problem can can be seen as a case of misdirected instinct. When that happens, our great natural assets, the instincts, have turned into physical and mental liabilities. Step 4 is our vigorous and painstaking effort to discover what these liabilities in each of us have been and are. There is no right or wrong way to do a fourth step. Just do it. There is no right or wrong way to do a fourth step. Just do it. Don't waste precious time trying to do a perfect fourth step. There are various step 4 worksheets available online. The big book suggests that we write out the fourth step. You shouldn't type it out or email it to your sponsor. In the big book, page 64, it states, we set them down on paper. We listed people. Page 65. On our grudge list, we set opposite each name our injuries was and our self-esteem, our security, our ambitions, our personal or sex relations, which had been interfered with. If we keep the fourth step simple, you can complete it in a few hours. You do not have to go back to kindergarten. You do not have to dig that deep to find your resentments. Put these things down that keep you up at night. The stuff that you think about as soon as you wake up. It's not the things that you don't remember to write on your fourth step that will take you out. It's the things that you do remember but do not write down. Take that you do not write down that may take you out. See, in the big book, page 65, it states, we went back through our lives. Nothing counted but thoroughness and honesty. You'll never be done with these steps. If you forget anything in this or any other step, you can do it in your 10th step. Remember the fourth step on notes for your fifth step. The fourth step is the beginning of the process to help us to have that profound personality change, which enables us to become a person who does not need to drink anymore. As I've stated, this is not an easy step to do. Who in the heck wants to peel away layers upon layers of negative, bad, terrible, horrible things about themselves? Nobody, nobody wants to do this. But we must, if we are to change. The fourth step goes against every self-preservation fiber in our being. But we must do it if we are to change. We must do it if we want to survive. If you trust the process, great things will happen. Clancy I, out of California, tells us a great story of early aviation. See, there are 4 inventories that we should be writing as part of our fourth step. The first one is our resentments, fears, and sex, and harms to others. I think it's a longer path if you do the fourth step in the form of a life story. Fourth step should mainly be notes and short phrases that will help you when you do your fifth step. However, there is no wrong way to do it. Just do it. Do you know how long it takes for some people to do a fourth step? 5 months worrying about and thinking about it, and then a half a day to do it. 1, list any thoughts, experiences, memories, ideas, beliefs, or observations from your entire life that currently cause negative emotional or mental experiences. This does not necessarily include negative mental or emotional impulses that cause you to drink, but the thoughts you harbor that that cause detrimental and emotional and mental experiences from the past to the present usually are resentments orientated towards a person, object, place, or thing. In this sense, having a specific list via pen and paper, get a pen and paper is essential for listing these items. Don't forget that part of this process includes taking an honest look at resentments towards yourself, as well as resentments or reservations that you may have about things relevant to the program, such as the program itself or a higher power. Number two, fears. Listing your fears may feel like an endless task. However, you may be amazed at how they seem to dissipate the minute that you write them down. Of course, there are some fears that are not as easily removed or even identifiable, but that is why we have a sponsor to help you in this process. Some helpful thoughts when considering your fears include asking yourself, what are you afraid of today? Then move forward and backward and ask yourself, what do I fear from the past? And what do I fear in the future? Three, this is the third inventory, sexual conduct, harm done to others. Depending on your temperament, this section can prove somewhat unnerving. However, experience have shown that sexual conduct is immensely linked to our views of ourselves and the views of others. In this sense, a thorough explanation of our sexual conduct in the past, especially as it relates to exposing character flaws or blemishes in us, is essential. Many program members suffer from long-standing and repressed resentments, shame, and insecurity due to prior sexual experiences, which linger for years below the surface. The fourth step is all about bringing these lingering fears, worries, shames, and elements of anger to the surface for an honest examination. The goal of ridding ourselves of these harmful pieces of emotional and mental lives make the process very worthwhile indeed. See, the biggest challenge for those engaging in a first fourth step is relinquishing the notion of righteous anger, justifications for the harmful actions, or rationalizations that minimize the harms caused. What we desire above all is honesty and thoroughness and a complete critical look at ourselves, which refuses to excuse the harms that we may have caused to ourselves or others. The fourth step is the beginning of the healing process. This is also where we start to work on the underlying conditions behind our alcoholism. After a while, the past will no longer have power over you as it did previously. You will start feeling happy, joyous, and free. Freedom from the past. You will start forgiving yourself and others. You will start seeing things as they really are and not how we perceive them. In the Big Book, page 7, it states, suppose we fall short of the chosen idea and stumble. Does this mean that we are going to get drunk? Some people tell us so, but this is only a half the truth. It depends on us and our motives. If we are sorry for what we have done and have an honest desire to let God take us to better things, we believe that we will be forgiven and will have learned our lesson. If we are not sorry and our conduct continues to harm others, we are quite sure to drink. We are not theorizing. These are the facts that we have seen from our experience. If we are not sorry for our conduct and continue to hurt others, we are quite sure to drink. We are not theorizing. These are the facts out of our experience. Wow. Okay. Right now, we're going to look at a short list of character defects. I'm going to put them in the chat and I will read them. And we will go over them together. Okay. And there they go. And they go like this. Just some things that I can look at today. Resentments and so on. Okay, I'm going to go over this list. And as I go over this list, I would like for you guys to identify with them or not.
Hey, cousin, just go over some of them,
Yeah.
not the whole list.
Okay, it's pretty quick. Let me do this. Okay, am I resentful? Yes or no? Do I still harbor anger? Yes or no? Am I still afraid and live in fear? Yes or no? Do I sometimes act like a coward? Do I experience self-pity, self-justification, or self-importance? Is my ego still running the show? Do I experience guilt? Since coming into recovery, am I still lying? Am I still dishonest and impatient?
Yes.
Do I express a false sense of pride?
Yes.
And sometimes am I phony?
Yes.
Am I jealous of others? Do I have envy? Am I lazy and procrastinate on the things that I should do? Am I sometimes insincere? Have negative and immoral thoughts?
Yes.
At the same time, I want everything perfectly my way, of course. Okay. Do I, I'm just going to finish up. Do I criticize and use loose talk and gossip? Am I greedy? The bottom line is these all boil down to selfishness, self-centeredness, dishonesty, fear, and resentment. What cause which is resentments is what kills more alcoholics than anything else. Okay. So you can hold on to that list and look at that list during the course of whenever you want to. And I always ask that at this point that you write down just a few things and take a look at them through the course of the day and see if that will help you. And that is what I found is selfishness, selfishness, wanting what's not mine and what's yours, self-centeredness, wanting things my way all the time, dishonesty, which is self-evident, just being a liar, fear, and resentment. Now, if I write these things down, which I have, and I carry them around and I look at them from time to time, especially when I'm getting ready to go somewhere important, and I'm able to identify them and then get a handle on them before I start to act out on them. Selfishness, self-centeredness, resentment, fear, and dishonesty. So yeah, that's it. Okay. We're going to look at a short list of character defects and ask yourself to identify any and all of them. Those are the ones that I put into the chat. And don't forget, there is no right or wrong way to do a fourth step. Just do it. Anyone with a sponsor or anyone who has long-term sobriety in the program who has worked the steps, you can ask them to help you out with that. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, we're going to move on to step 5. Who's on the list to read step 5? Let me check it.
I am.
Well, let's do it. Go ahead.
Thanks. This is Caitlin. I'm an alcoholic addict. Thank you for letting me be of service today. Step 5, is admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Big Book, page 72, says, having made our personal inventory, what shall we do about it? We have been trying to get a new attitude, a new relationship with our Creator, and to discover the obstacles in our path. We have admitted certain defects. We have ascertained in a rough way what the trouble is. We have put our finger on the weak items in our personal inventory. Now these are about to be cast out. This requires action on our part, which, when completed, will mean that we have admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our defects. This brings us to the fifth step in the program of recovery mentioned in the preceding chapter. Why is it so important to do a fifth step with someone else? Well, you decide for yourself. Using the Big Book from page 72, it says, if we skip this vital step, we may not overcome drinking. Time after time, newcomers have tried to keep to themselves certain facts about their lives. Trying to avoid this humbling experience, they have turned to easier methods. Almost invariably, they got drunk. Having persevered with the rest of the program, they wondered why they fell. We think the reason is that they never completed their house cleaning. They took inventory all right, but hung on to some of it, and it's the worst items in stock. They only thought if they had lost their egoism and fear, they only thought that they had humbled themselves. But they had not learned enough of humility, fearlessness, and honesty, in the sense we find it necessary, until they told someone else all their life story. We are as sick as our deepest, darkest secrets. Make your life an open book. The AA 12 steps are fashioned in such a manner as to bring about a profound personality change, which will lead to the drink problem being removed from us. Alcohol was not the problem, never was the problem. Once alcohol has been removed from the equation, we must deal with the real problem, ourselves and our character defects, and become a person who no longer needs to drink. The fourth step was the beginning of the process to allow us to change. The fifth and subsequent steps continued helping with the changing process. Why does the fifth step work? It is something new that AA and Bill Wilson stumbled upon? Not really. The concept of the fifth step has been in use for centuries. Confession of our sins is something that many religions employ. It's probably true that women live longer than men because of kitchen table psychology. Many women will tell another one everything that goes on in her life and will seek counsel from her friend or friends at different times. This is the same method that AA uses to help us make our lives an open book. Some benefits of doing a fifth step: not unique, not alone, freedom from the past, freedom from fear of being found out, forgiveness of self and others. We begin to see things as they are and not as we perceive them. We gain peace of mind and serenity and true humility. The Big Book, page 75, says we pocket our pride and go to it, illuminating every twist of character, every dark cranny of the past. Once we have taken this step, withholding nothing, we are delighted. We can look the world in the eye. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Our fears fall from us. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. The feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. We feel we are on the broad highway, walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe. A word of caution: be careful with whom you do your fifth step, because there is no legal privilege, implied or otherwise, unless you do it with a lawyer or a priest. Even then, there are certain crimes that a person is obligated to report if you tell them. However, the AA program is all about growing up and accepting responsibilities for our actions. In the words of Dr. Bob, trust God, clean house, help others. The 12 and 12, pages 60 to 61, our next problem will be to discover the person in whom we are to confide. Here we ought to take much care, remembering that prudence is a virtue which carries a high rating. Perhaps we shall need to share with this person facts about ourselves which no others ought to know. We shall want to speak with someone who is experienced, who has not only stayed dry, but has been able to surmount other serious difficulties. In the Big Book, page 74, it says, rightly and naturally, we think well before we choose the person or persons with whom to take this intimate and confidential step. Those of us belonging to a religious denomination which requires confession must, and of course will want to go to the properly appointed authority whose duty it is to receive it. Though we have no religious connection, we may still do well to talk to someone ordained by an established religion. We often find such a person quick to see and understand our problem. Of course, we sometimes encounter people who do not understand alcoholics. If we cannot or would rather not do this, we search our acquaintance for a closed-mouthed, understanding friend. Perhaps our doctor or psychologist will be the person. It may be one of our own family, but we cannot disclose anything to our wives or our parents which will hurt them and make them unhappy. We have no right to save our own skin at another person's expense. With that, some 5 fifth step questions. How should I do my 5th step? It doesn't matter. It can be in person or Zoom or on the phone. If I relapse on step 4 or 5, which step should I start on again? Start on that same step, but go back to step 1 if you have any reservations. How long should I wait to do step 5 after completion of the 4th step? You can start on the same day. I'm ready to do step 4 and get on with the rest of the steps, but my sponsor wants me to wait. What should I do? Get another sponsor. Does it matter who I choose to do my 5th step with? Try to find someone you trust. You can do it with anyone, such as your sponsor, a priest, or therapist. How long should a 5th step last? It takes as long as it takes. It doesn't matter. What is my part if I'm the victim of the abuse of a child? You are 100% innocent and totally the victim. Your part is to not have a victim mentality. Don't let it have power over you anymore. Get outside help if needed and start helping others. Should men listen to a woman's 5th step or vice versa? It doesn't matter. It's just a suggestion. How often should I do a 4th and or 5th step? That is totally up to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for reading the 5th step. So now it says, let's move on to step 6. And don't forget that this workshop is available for you to keep and to read on your own also. All right. So the person that was supposed to read step 6 is not here. Well, can I get a volunteer for step 6?
I'll read it.
Hello?
I can read it if you want. Jonathan, it's Nicole.
Okay, go ahead. And then just a heads up. After step 6, we're going to stop for a few minutes because it's going to be 11:30 and a lot of people are going to be trying to come in. So we're going to stop for a minute after step 6. Go ahead.
Step 6. We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 12 and 12, page 46. We don't just focus on the bad character traits because there are some good and bad in all of us. The sponsor probably points out that the newcomer has some assets which can be noted along with his liabilities. This tends to clear away morbidity and encourage balance as soon as he begins to be more objective. The newcomer can fearlessly rather than fearfully look at his own defects. There is no difference between a character defect and a shortcoming. Bill Wilson was asked why he chose different words in those 2 steps, and he said that he just didn't want to end the sentence with the same words. 12 and 12, page 63. This is the step that separates the men from the boys. Big Book, page 64. Our liquor was but a symptom, so we had to get down to causes and conditions. We have emphasized willingness as being indispensable. Are we now ready to let God remove from us all the things which we have admitted are objectionable? Can he now take them all, everyone? If we still cling to something, we will not let go. We ask God to help us be willing. Big Book, page 76. A very few examples of character defect, shortcomings, and their opposites. Selfish, unselfish, giving, sharing, dishonest, honest, resentful, forgiving, afraid, fear, faith, arrogant, humble, egotistical, I can never say that word, sorry, modest, cocky, mild, envy, grateful, sloth, hard, working, industrious, gluttony, sharing, impatient, patient, vengeful, loving, hurtful, kind, sarcastic, complimentary, intolerant, intolerant. So character defects as their opposites, AA principles and the 7 deadly sins. There's a link for that in the reading here. 12 and 12, page 65. So step 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all those defects of character, is AA's way of stating the best possible attitude one can take in order to make a beginning on this lifetime job. This does not mean that we expect all our character defects to be lifted out of us as the drive to drink was. A few of them may be, but with most of them we shall have to be content with patient improvement. The key words, entirely ready, underline the fact that we want to aim at the very best we know or can learn. Do you acknowledge that you have character defects that you need to work on? Yes or no?
Yes.
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 We now proceed to step 7.
Maybe.
Yeah. Are you ready to start working on these character defects and get help from your higher power? Yes or no?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
All right, we're gonna
Yes.
let go and let God today. That's what we're gonna let go and let God today, right? That's what's up. Okay. Any volunteer for step 7? We're just gonna proceed right through because people know that we are having a workshop today instead of a regular meeting. Anyone for step
And they
7?
may decide to stay, just like last month, a lot of them stayed for the workshop anyway.
I can keep reading if you like, Jonathan, I don't mind.
You're gonna come back in later anyway, right? Let's see if we can get someone. Oh, Claire is here. Let Claire get a chance.
There we go.
One of our readers too.
So I'm just going to read it. I just step 7 out of the 12 and 12, right?
No, we have it in the chat. You got to open it in the chat.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. See where it says 12 Step to Freedom Workshop? Go down to step 7.
Are we able to get that document?
Where does it say it? I'm sorry, John. Oh, so
put in the chat again, John, for her. Put in the chat.
Oh, there it is. I just click on that link. There we go. Thank you.
Great.
Okay, here we go. Okay. Hello, not hello, everyone, or below that. Okay, no.
No, go all the way down to step 7. Scroll all the way down.
Thank you, love. Oh my God, I'm slow.
I have a quick question while Claire's getting set up there.
Yeah, go ahead.
So step 5, I struggle. I've gone through the steps, but I'm doing step 5 again, and I'm on step 5 now. But I struggle with just being trusting someone. That whole trusting thing. I don't know why I'm so hung up on that this time. I was fine with it. The first time I did it, I was fine. I don't know why this. I don't know, because maybe the first time I didn't share everything, and now I'm completely sharing everything, and I'm so hung up on that.
It's a trauma response, Nicole. It's a trauma response. We lock ourselves in, right? And that's why we in this room. We can't share. We can't let people in, because if we let them in, they're going to know our secrets, right?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. And I know that it's just like, it's like, when, you can do something and you have to do it, you know what I mean? But you're just like every excuse. It's so bad. It's like, and I'm so beside myself with it. I'm just being totally honest with you about it. It's like eating at me. And I just want to like spew it all out. That story.
Right.
Girl,
So,
girl,
Oh.
okay. Send me
Okay.
your cell phone number because I'm gonna hold you accountable because I need you to hold me accountable. And I was just messaging John about someone else that I was holding accountable, and they freaking held me. They're like, "You better be here." And yeah, no, message me your number.
Okay.
right. So earlier we
Okay.
talked let me say something, because earlier on
Yeah.
step 4, at the end of step 4, we talked about a story that Clancy